You know, I feel a little dirty touching upon the oversaturated topic of deliberately ugly women in gaming, like all those other clout chase YouTubers, but I honestly believe I have some unique points to add along with a bit of neutrality when it comes to the subject. Let's get into it. It was the most recent Star Wars Outlaws game that pushed me over the edge. Apart from the bad classic Battlefront ports, I never really thought Star Wars had any significant drastic declines when it comes to gaming at least. But then this picture of an alien Lord Farquaad PS5 MJ lookalike hits my face for the low price of 130 American dollars. So now I am met with one of the few Star Wars games I had to skip, and it sucks ass too, as I was possibly looking forward to this game, as large scale free roam is something that would have been new to Star Wars games. She didn't look as bad on the cover art originally, and then it just got worse. In terms of skin tones, that's like my personal preference when it comes to women. And now they did first world bone surgery on her, when it comes to the original bussin' actress. I didn't hate it as much when it rarely happened with black women motion capture actresses like Jasmine Savoy Brown, as opposed to modern white women who honestly behave as badly as those faces look. But now they're doing it to my preferences. Now they're like totally doing it to women of color. Now look, there's the other extreme side of the spectrum I won't approve of, where they take the beauty standards a little too seriously, with the big goofy as fuck impractical anime titties on Asian women and no blacks according to this article and a few racist tweets you could probably hunt down. I don't straight up despise anime titties or whatever, but like, you see, this goofball shit is just hilarious. Not only are you slagging my type of lady, but that shit doesn't even make sense. Sorry for the degenerate music video footage I'm about to display on the screen, but that whole big titty, big asses anime shit you guys love to lust over are proportions that are objectively more likely to be seen on a black woman more than any other ethnic group. Asian women are actually the least likely to have that shit, funny enough, given that their clothes are usually sized down on average. You guys are drawing and animating proportions that your women are the least likely to have, while racially discriminating against the group that is objectively the most likely to have it. The most illogical form of racism ever, only being rivaled by Indians making fun of black people for stealing, as if they don't have an official job stealing from people via multiple scam centers. When a black person steals from someone, it's face to face and him breaking the law, as opposed to clocking in to steal the entire life savings from some old person suffering from dementia as an official job. But anyway, beyond the racism I just stonked on and beyond the anime titty extreme, there's more grey examples to be discussed. Like when the ladies are downgraded from the past, but not by a degree that's horrible enough to be extremely pissed off at. Like Battlefront's Aiden. The end product of her face was pretty decent, but they fucked with it on certain shots as opposed to reality where she looks more consistently better. MK is where things get less grey, as I can admit that most of the faces look good enough to be impressed with if the homie announces them as his new girl, etc., despite the clear change in tone from past titles. Although one can't argue downgrades in outfits given the official statements made by the game's art director when he tried to argue realism being the reason for the covered outfits, even though the men are still shirtless. The women wear heels still, and the real-life MMA fighters dress like this. Or the WWE if you want to count that. Sure, they ended up doubling back on this crap later with DLC outfits, but that's probably due to the original art designer leaving or something. The guy who made those original decisions swung the other way, just so you know. How coincidental. I remember seeing trace elements of this with Injustice 2 and Catwoman's face, and God knows it'll only get worse with the third game. Not only with microtransactions that will get worse than what I've already covered before with my Injustice 2 video, and as far as what has been seen with MK1 where they charge $10 for a voice clip. But I can guess faces will take a hit in Injustice 3 as well. A fan favorite like Starfire probably conveniently won't return because of her revealing appearance that's tied to her character. It would conflict with the spite they want to pull if they were to add her, but hey, maybe they'll give her the iconic MJ Lord Farquaad. Who knows? Anyway, I'm so glad that Arkham ended before that shit started happening to games. I don't want to talk about Suicide Squad, but I guess we will before finishing off with ugly as fuck MJ. They did it again with Harley Quinn. Not just her face that changed from prior games, but sorry to sound down bad as fuck, but you can clearly see that her titties and ass fucking shrunk mid-continuity. Oh, and her past Arkham costumes aren't skins either. A missed opportunity of Arkham Knight 2, but they at least had a better default skin to compensate. But yeah, this ugly example isn't as bad as Insomniac MJ still. As horrible as that game is overall, I don't really agree with some people trying to pass off their Wonder Woman as ugly. I ran the actress by my server and nobody found her to be ugly. In the game, she doesn't look as drastically far off apart from being made beefier, which is a logical justified change for some jacked warrior like Wonder Woman, similar to how competent jacked MMA fighters and wrestlers look. Although I won't deny the outfit or appearance not looking as pretty as other adaptations. I'm not defending that game overall, but I just don't really think that their Wonder Woman is ugly. If I made a community post introducing my new girlfriend as someone who looked like this, then nobody would think I settled. But anyway, now we end off on the final, undefendable boss of ugly bitches. Spider-Man 2's Lord Farquaad, Mary Jane. This is definitely the worst example of them all that narrowly beats the recent Star Wars example. Even people that don't bitch about face downgrades on women didn't even try to defend this shit, such as more neutral YouTubers like Demigod, or my bud Katanas fans who has videos that also bring up people having too much high standards for the badonkadonk. Even more than I would. And even he wouldn't hesitate to call that shit ugly.
Whoa, do you hear what I hear? Do you see what I see? Bro, do you see that's Joker talking about me? I came up in his block and now he won't let me leave. Alright, that's enough of me stealing lyrics. So, if you know me, you know how I roll. I like to play reasonable and neutral to both sides, even if I'm leaning more to one specific side than the other in a specific topic. I feel like, thanks to my most recent video talking about Dead or Alive's quote gimmick, my stance on beauty standards and by proxy sex appeal have been pretty reasonable and clear. Obviously, having hot women be hot is a mega plus, having ugly women is kinda not. However, I don't think it's a problem when doing it for an original character or doing it in a certain way. For instance, if a game came out with a large number of important characters, many looking attractive and some others looking below average, but all of these are original characters, would this really be a bad thing if it's truly balanced across the roster? Would this true form of diversity be bad? I think making a character ugly can really be a problem in select instances. One where whoever's in charge is doing it so hard on purpose that it can feel too intentional to the point where it's distracting or taking away from the main point of a plot. And then the other where you're changing a previously established character who had high looks or above average looks and reducing them on purpose for whatever reason. Yes, if you have eyeballs, you can also tell that Mary Jane was clearly downgraded in her looks between the first and second game. And it's kinda weird how I have to reiterate that. However, I noticed a big chunk of Joker's video up to this point had a lot to do with beauty standards specifically applying to black women in media and games. As a guy who's always had a thing for Asian chicks, I want to focus on this part of the video. We all know good and damn well that designers know how to get in good with our black queens. Michiko, Lisa, Panam, Yoruchi, MK9 Jade, MK11 Jade. This list does not continue for me because I'm uncultured. You get the point. However, I want to showcase another point of black characters who may not fit into this category of what the set bar is for beauty standards of this race. Funny enough, MK1 is a perfect example of this. When Tawna was initially announced, there was naturally a split in the community over her new design. She looked fuckable to Melina. Okay, in all seriousness, Tawna didn't look as good as she did, nor anything like what she did 7 years prior to this game and her announcement. in which some people would point out that she was better back then. But that's the thing, is this Tawna interpreted the way she is because she's considered ugly, or exclusively because she was different now than she was then? Hell, in MKX, Tawna was somehow white for a few seconds, remember that? When it comes to black women specifically playing a part in this, it's more of a nuanced topic if you ask me. Not just because of their features, but attraction in the black community, and hell, what anyone's attracted to for that matter, varies. Here's another example of this. Uncharted. Let's take out the whole wokeism thing from this for a bit and just talk about what Naughty Dog was doing with their last entry. They, like Mortal Kombat, were going for a much more realistic approach to their characters, diving more and more into hyperrealism than ever before. Their first black female character would be Nadine Ross, a badass black lady who actually kicks the shit out of both Nathan Drake and his brother Sam. See, the reason I can buy this is because it makes sense that Nadine's got a higher level of training than Nathan given the established context of the previous games. Nathan never really had a study of martial arts like that. He was just good at punching shit and he learned it from an old man. Chloe, however, had a style to her moves, same thing for Nadine. I can believe this because it's fairly evident and reasonable in approach to, well, unlike anyway, regardless, it's not outlandish that this black lady is superior to Nathan Drake on the simple fact that one had a higher level of skill than the other. This is why I say take the wokeism out of it. I'm sorry, but I severely doubt that this is a black woman beats the shit out of white man for reparations in media thing, and more of just a skill diff thing in the story. Back to looks for a second, I've heard multiple people be attracted to Nadine Ross because she's their type of black woman in terms of looks. Same thing for Bangalore. People have their tastes, and it can even apply to MK1 Tawna. Even if people will argue she looks bad, there's gonna be the opposing side that not only argues she looks fine, but she's also attractive because of said realism we talked about earlier. And this can apply to more than just one race. Some say Lee May looks bad, but I'd frankly call her Lee Bay. And I'm not the only one. I know this is gonna be all over the place, but I wanna end off on this. I talked about the sex appeal aspect thing on MK1 with certain outfits being censored regarding Lee May a while ago, and on that video I got a really good comment saying, quote, "I see more attractive girls on a daily basis. If realistic means ugly and attractive means a hooker, that's more offensive to women in my opinion." Listen, I'm just here as your friendly neighborhood libtard giving my 2 cents here, but I really want you to keep that realism thing in mind when discussing this subject because I don't feel like enough people really do. Joker could disagree on this as well, and it just is what it is. Hell, maybe in contrast to what Joker says throughout this part of the video may not even really belong, but it's just what I consider my neutral take featured in Joker's otherwise aggro anti-racism video.
You, wanna riz guyats? No cap.
That actually worked better than I would have thought when it comes to displaying the kinder side of the debate. Feel free to turn the comments into a brawl of disagreements as I actually enjoy the debate so long as I'm not dealing with those dumb insomniac stands that somehow defend Lois, Rambo, Farquaad, Jane. But anyway, I'm not exactly educated on every game he delved into, such as Uncharted that I haven't touched yet, but you see, all of those examples he provided seemed subjective enough, unlike PS5, MJ that only the extremists of the extremist cuck shills try to defend by saying dog shit like, "Oh, you don't know how a woman looks like." Fuck you! Go fuck yourself and die, you socially oblivious blind moron. Go dip your eyes in acid if you can't use your eyes correctly enough to notice that the average healthy woman under the age of 30 or maybe even 40 doesn't look that dog shit. You can see women at Starbucks or McDonald's and they look better than that. Like that ugly MJ face is really something that only some chronically online loser who looks like a punchline to a joke would defend or downplay. Nobody looks moderate and actually thinks that shit is okay. MJ is 25 in Spider-Man 2, by the way. Yeah, downgrades like that should not be supported, especially when looking at the women doing the motion capture, whether it be that Star Wars chick on the game I'm not buying or ugly PS5 Mary Jane from the game I shouldn't have bought. Notice how games like Spider-Man 2, Gotham Knights, and Suicide Squad just so happen to decline in tandem with ugly faces? Makes you think of the possible fact that these face downgrades often go in tandem with bad games for the most part. And go fuck yourself with that MJ car accident excuse. A quick search on her Instagram shows her face as being pretty fine. If they can make Andy Serkis look like these various characters with motion capture, then I'm pretty sure that MJ can look normal instead of being a self-insert for an arrogant, ugly bitch that looks as bad as her dog shit, Sweet Baby Ink writing. Like, imagine if that actress is your daughter or relative, and then you can't even recognize her face when the product releases. Anyone who defends shit that bad is genuinely a neck snap tier individual whose gaslighting should be punished. Someone who can't put together that this doesn't look right probably isn't an individual who could accomplish anything in life except working as a shill for some company. A shill with thousands of subs is still a shill. I don't want to hear that bullshit quote of beauty being within the eye of the beholder. As valid as that quote can be at times, ain't no way I'm gonna take that quote seriously when it comes to the comparison of these actresses versus what ended up happening in the game, or Suicide Squad Harley Quinn versus past Arkham games, when we all know that over 90% of people will say the other answer, to the point of something being prettier being a pretty much objective case. Ain't no way I'm gonna look at some bitch from the show My 600-Pound Life and say, beauty is within the eye of the beholder. Die! There's general standards of beauty. Don't be a cuck and pretend they don't exist before I laser you fucking cucks with my fucking eyeballs. I will admit the people who have too high standards can also be ugly as hell degenerates too, but it's not as common. Hell, I'll end off with saying I would rather have the big titty anime over sexualization over whatever the fuck these two faces are. Although I prefer more of a balance, take Arkham as a good enough example of a middle ground. Sexy but not too down bad. As said before, Arkham ended before that shit started getting into high swing, unlike Insomniac that doesn't get beat by anything except that Fable face. I guess there's other sides from the other half of the argument I could respect, like Giga as fuck Seal, even if I don't completely see eye to eye with his standards. Like, maybe if we held our ground on minor downgrades and we would have never got PS5 Farquad MJ. If you want the big rules to be respected, I guess you have to enforce the small ones. Like, there's this multiplayer I absolutely love called Crash Team Rumble, where this Bandicoot looks prettier than most of these women who are also shaped like ass, such as them giving MJ manly proportions while removing her curves. Yeah, you have to deal with that shit on top of a face that looks as ugly as that, to the point where a fucking Bandicoot looks more human. Y'all are nearly turning me into a fucking furry with your bullshit. Or an, Symbiote, given that Scream also has better female curves and proportions than regular MJ. But that's enough for this video. Sorry to say this corny shit you've heard before, but at this point you sorta have to speak with your wallet and boycott this shit. Fuck this first world western brain rot, and if you fell into the racist anime camp or the Lord Farquaad Mary Jane defense camp, then fuck you too. And check out my media like Discord and other videos before I kick you with my fist.